2017 benchmark, questions 19 through 30. Okay, so I started 19 on the last one, but it got interrupted by bells, so we're going to do it again. It's Alte bought a brand new car 6 years ago for $22,000 to $22,250, as shown by the table below. So what's the correlation coefficient? Now, in order to do this question, you have to have the diagnostic on. So if you're not sure how to do that, you press the second blue button and then you press 0 for catalog. Scroll all the way down until you find diagnostic on. And then hit enter and enter one more time so it says done. So now I'm going to go to Stat Edit and enter in all these values. I've already got them entered for this one. And go to Stat Calculate. When you're trying to find the correlation coefficient, you need to select number 4. And when I'm looking at these numbers, they give you r squared and r. Well, the only one you care about is the regular r. That one has 0.955. So right away, I can get rid of answer choices C and D. Now, what you need to remember about this is that when you have a negative correlation coefficient like that, you also have a negative correlation, and the closer it is to -1, that's considered a strong correlation. So when I'm looking at this number, it is very close to -1, so it's a strong negative linear association. All right, number 20. The table represents some points on the graph of a linear function. Which function represents the same relationship? So on this problem, I'm looking at my table of values and I want to match it to an equation. Now these look like all equations of a line, so what I'm going to do is go into my calculator, do Stat Edit, enter in all of my x values. So that's all my x's and all of my y's. Go to Stat, Calculate, and let's select number 4 and see if this is a line. So I look at my x values. That one's -2.9, which looks like it's very close to -3. So I might have messed up whenever I entered in some of my values. So I'm just going to double check really fast. 12, 0. Okay, no, I didn't. So Stat Calculate, I'm going to go to number 4 again. The one that it's closest to is -3, so it's not going to be one of these. And it has -9 right there. I feel like I messed something up. 21. Oh, there it is. -3.5. Okay, I found it. So Stat Calculate number 4. It should be exact numbers. There we go. So I've got -3 and I have -10.5. So this one should be answer choice F. So if you end up with something weird like I just did, make sure whenever you go back to Stat Edit, double check and make sure that you entered in everything correctly. Number 21. What is the slope of a line that passes through those 2 points? Okay, whenever you're going back to your calculator, second plus 712, so I'm going to clear out everything that I had. I'm going to Stat Edit again because I've got 2 points on a line, so -339. Here's my 7 value and my 12 value. Now, the reason that I know that this is going to be a line, first of all, they said line, and second of all, they mentioned slope. So anytime it's a slope, it has to be linear, so I'm going to select number 4. Now, I got that long decimal, and if you want to, you can write it down, so -0.0769230769, and that is my slope value. So if I type that into my main calculator, let's see if we can do something. 692300769. If I go to math, enter, nope, it didn't change into a fraction. So if that happens to you, use your answer choices instead. Let's do -1 divided by 13. I'm going to change that one into a decimal. Now that decimal does match exactly what we had right here, so that's got to be my answer choice. If I check the next one, 5/13, that number does not match what we got for our slope, so I wouldn't keep going. -13 definitely doesn't work, and 13/5 also does not work. So it had to be answer choice A. Number 22. A manager purchased a total of 21 coffee mugs and keychains. Each coffee mug cost $8.50 and each keychain cost $2.75. If the manager spent a total of $132.50, how many coffee mugs did the manager purchase? Okay, first of all, I'm going to highlight this so that I remember we're only asking about the coffee mugs. That's the only thing that we care about right here. But there's actually two unknowns. We don't know the coffee mugs or the keychains. And I'm going to go ahead and let C equal coffee mugs and K equal keychains. Now they said that there's a total of 21 of them. So if C is my number of coffee mugs and I add my number of keychains to them, altogether there's 21 of them. Now they also said that each coffee mug cost $8.50, the keychains are $2.75, and they spent a total of $32.50. So I'm going to write a second equation using the money. And the reason that I know I had to write two equations is because there was actually two things that we don't know the value of. So I've got $8.50 for each coffee mug plus $2.75 for each keychain, and this equals $132.50. Now, since we are trying to find the coffee mugs, we are trying to find C, it makes the most sense to eliminate my K values. And when you're trying to figure out elimination, and the reason I'm going with elimination, everything is all lined up, okay, I look at my smaller number. My smaller number is 1K, so that's the easier one to change. I need to make this into the same number and opposite sign, and since it's a regular 1 right now, I'm going to multiply that by negative 2.75. And you've got to make sure that you do that all the way across. So now it's negative 2.75C minus 2.75K is equal to, let's go ahead and do that multiplication. So negative 2.75 times my constant, 21, gives me negative 57.75. The other equation, I'm not making any changes to it. I'm just going to rewrite it underneath so that I have everything all lined up again. Now I can add my two equations going straight down. Okay, so if you want to use your calculator for this, I've got negative 2.75 plus 850. That gives me 5.75C. These two have the same number and opposite signs, so when I add them together I get 0. They've been eliminated. And on my other numbers, negative 57.75 plus 132.50 gives me 74.75. So I have one more step in order to find my value of C. I'm going to divide both sides by 5.75. And I end up with C is equal to 13. And just double checking myself, because anytime you do one of these system questions, make sure you're answering the right problem. They said they wanted coffee mugs. We let C equal coffee mugs, and we found the value of C. So our answer is 13. Number 23. A sports magazine prints 12 issues per year, and a technology magazine prints 10 issues per year. The total number of pages in all of the issues of the sports magazine for 1 year is 32 more than the total of number of pages in the issues of the technology magazine for 1 year. Each issue of the sports magazine has 18 fewer pages than each issue of the technology magazine. Which system of equations can be used to find S, the total number of pages in each issue of the sports magazine, and T, the number of pages in each issue of the technology magazine? So first of all, when you are doing these problems, I would highlight what the variables represent. And it might actually even make it easier on this one to come over to the side and write that down. So S is number of pages in the sports magazine, and T is the number of pages in the technology magazine. Okay, so in the problem, they said sports magazines print 12 issues per year, and technology magazines print 10 issues per year. So that kind of tells me that somewhere in the problem I should have 12S, because that's the sports magazines, and technology I'm going to have 10T, and the total number of pages in all of those issues is 32 more than the total number of pages in the technology issues. So right now, I'm just going to get rid of some answer choices knowing that I should have 12S or 10T. So this one has that. This one has my numbers mixed around, but that's still okay. This one has 10S instead of 10T, so that one's gone. This one has 12T instead of 12S, so that one's gone. So looking at my answer choices right here, I'm going to go back to this problem. They said the total number of pages in all of the issues of the sports magazines for 1 year is. That's my equals word. So I know that the issues of the sports magazine, which there's 12 issues of that, 12 issues of sports magazines are equal to 32 more than, so I'm adding 32 to however many issues of the technology magazine that we have, so plus 10T. So I'm looking at my answer choices. That gets rid of B, and that leaves me with answer choice A. So looking at the rest of it, if I was doing the other part, they said each issue of the sports magazine has 18 fewer pages than each issue of the technology magazine. So sports are equal to the technology minus 18. That also makes sense, so this one has to be answer choice A. Okay. Number 24. The exponential function modeled below represents the number of square kilometers of land occupied by cane toads X years after this animal was first introduced to Australia. Based on the data, which measurement is closest to the number of square kilometers of land that will be occupied by cane toads 40 years after this animal was first introduced to Australia? Now they gave me 40 years. And if you look at your variables right up here, this column is usually my X column and this is my Y. So basically the time in years is talking about X values. So they're giving me an X value of equal to 40. And that would help me if I had an equation, which we don't have. But we did get a table of values, and we know if we go to Stat Edit, we can enter that in and write an equation. So I'm going to enter in all my values. Okay. And then I'm going to stat calculate. Now in this problem they told us that we were dealing with an exponential function, so I'm going to go all the way down and select 0 for exponential. Now my numbers might not be exact right here, but I'm just going to use this to write my equation. When they have a times b to the x power, that little up arrow right there means it's an exponent. So I would have my a value, and I'm just going to round. I've got 2521.065. I'm just going to put 3 decimal places, 065. My b value is 1.0979, and I'm going to raise that to my exponent x. Now in our case, our exponent is going to be 40, so I'm going to type this all in. And raise it to the x power. Now the more decimals that you write down, the closer your answer is going to be. And when I look at this one, I'm starting to think that once again I messed up on my stat edit. Let's go back. Yay. Okay, 30, 35, all of that's okay. There it is. 78800. Let's double check before I do it again. Okay, stat calculate number 0. Okay, that looks better. So rewrite this. Mrs. Brown's making a lot of mistakes today. So 36492.18793. I'm just going to put all the decimals. And 1.08 inside my parentheses. And I am raising this to the 40th power. So let's try that again. I hit enter right here. It gives me 792,775, which looks like it's closest to 800,000. So I picked the one that is the closest. Right. 25. Which graph represents the solution set to this? Now when you are dealing with this, you've already got your y by itself. You only need to care about the inequality sign. Now I can't actually write the word less than with it, so it's not a less than symbol, it's a greater than symbol. When it has the line, you need to be looking for a solid line. So right away, 2 of your answer choices, A and D, are gone. So solid line means solid line on your picture. Now it is a greater than symbol, which means we should shade up. So it doesn't matter what point you're on the line. If you point up and that's not in the shaded area, it's the wrong problem. When I look at this one, I pick a point, I shade up. I am in the shaded area, so that's my solution. 26. In an electrical circuit, the voltage across a resistor is directly proportional to the current running through the resistor. Right away, I see directly proportional. Now that means we actually need to set up our two equal signs and then end up doing cross multiply and divide. They said if a current of 12 amps produces 480 volts across the resistor, how many volts would a current of 1.5 amps produce? So we are comparing amps and volts. So I'm going to use those two labels to help me set up my fractions. I've got 12 amps, I've got it lined up with 480 volts across the resistor, and then we have 1.5 amps, so I need to make sure that I put that on top, lined up with the amps, and this is the part that we don't know. That's our unknown, that's our variable x. So I'm going to multiply across. 12 times x is 12x, and 1.5 times 480, if I come over here, gives me 720. Then from there, I'm going to divide both sides by 12 to finish getting x by itself, and I've got 60. So x is equal to 60. Okay. Number 27. What value of x makes this equation true? So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you the right way first, okay, the technical way. When you see these kind of problems and with parentheses, you need to think, distribute, and combine like terms. So negative 5x stays as it is, but this negative in front of the parentheses means negative 1, so we need to multiply. That gives me a positive 7, and that becomes a positive 4x. On the other side, I also need to distribute. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. So I distributed. Now I need to combine like terms. On the left, negative 5x plus 4x is negative 1x. I still have the plus 7, and on the right side, I don't need to combine anything because there aren't any like terms. Now, when you have these kind of problems that have the variables on both sides and it's the same letter, you need to take the one on the right and move it over. When you move things across an equal sign, you are doing the opposite operations. So I am going to actually add 6x to each side. Negative 1 plus 6 gives me 5x's plus 7 is equal to a positive 8. So one more thing I need to do, or two more things. It's a two-step equation. I subtract the friend. That gives me 5x is equal to positive 1. One last step, I finished dividing both sides by 5, and I've got x is equal to 1/5. Now, if you had typed that into your calculator and did 1 divided by 5, you would have got this decimal. Remember, you can press math, enter, enter. That's how I know it's actually 1/5. So my answer would be D. Now, if you were not really sure how to do that, there is another option. You can take that answer choice and plug it in for both of the x's in your problem. So if I did this, and I'm using the answer choice 1/5 because I know that works. So I've got negative 5 times 1/5 minus these parentheses, so negative 7 minus 4 times another 1/5. And I'm going to close it. Now this is just the left side of the equal sign. I ended up with 34 over 5. That's the left side of my equal sign. If I do the same thing to the other side, so I've got negative 2 times 3, and then another x, so let's put in 1/5. Let's close that. Minus 4. Close it all. That also gave me 34 over 5. So if you plug that number into both sides of the equal sign for x, and you end up with the same thing on both sides, that means it's a solution. If you don't end up with the same thing on both sides, it is not the solution. Now for number 28, studies have shown that the consumption of tobacco products in the form of cigarettes increases, so does the number of patients diagnosed with lung cancer. How are these variables most likely related? Now, I don't really like this question, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but it should be answer choice J. Number 29. The table represents some points on the graph of a linear function. What is the rate of change of y with respect to x for this function? Okay, if you're staring at this question and you have no idea what to do, look at your vocabulary word. Rate of change. That means we are looking for slope. And anytime we've got points, either on a line or on a table or a list of points, and they need us to find the slope or the y-intercept, use your stat edit. If I go into stat edit and I enter in the points, and this time I'm going to do it right. Let's see. Probably. And I go to Stat Calculate. We are talking about a linear function, so I know I'm selecting number 4. And we are looking for the rate of change. Now I got negative 4.5. Now my answer choices are in fractions, so let's go back to our main screen and type in negative 4.5. If you press Math and then you press Enter twice, it'll give you negative 9 over 2, which means our answer should be B. One more, number 30. The total cost in dollars to buy uniforms for the players on a volleyball team can be found using this function, C equals 34.95U plus 6.25, where U is the number of uniforms bought. If there are at least 8 players but not more than 12 players on the volleyball team, what is the domain for this function? Okay, that's my vocabulary word right there. When I see domain or range, the first thing I'm going to do is write down Dr. XY so that I know domain is actually talking about X values. Now in this problem, that's a little bit confusing because we don't have X and Y, we have C and U. But if I was going to rewrite this problem using X and Y, it would be Y is equal to 34.95X plus 6.25. So in this case, our X value is actually a U, and that's talking about the number of uniforms. So we are actually talking about the number of uniforms right here. And if there's at least 8 players but not more than 12, well, you would need 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 uniforms. So that would be the domain.